I have some questions to ask. For example, is AI a friend or foe in digital advertising creativity? We are going to hear answers to this very important question from Adam Singolda, CEO and founder of Taboola, and John-Paul Pieper, member of the board and management, direct sales, and Omnichannel, ERGO. So I'm not going to talk anymore because I had to interrupt Sven. I'm going to say, please give them a big, warm round of applause. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. This is an awesome crowd. Thank you. Israelis need coffee at any given opportunity we have, so thank you for the coffee. You know, it's so nice to do this in person, not on Zoom and not on remotely. And last year, it was all about coming back to be in person. If you were here at this event last year, the theme was kind of like we talked about in person and socializing and being together. This year, how could you ever talk about anything but GenAI? You must be sick of it. We're going to talk about it too. However, we're going to make it interesting. We're going to dive into a bunch of things. But let me start by saying more than $15 billion were invested in GenAI over the last 6 months. It affects all of us. It affects our productivity, our employees, our partners, our clients. We generate love letters to our loved ones, claiming that it's us. We use it all the time. But the question is, are we happy or are we scared? I'm honored to have today with me our partner, a friend, a leader in this industry, John-Paul Pieper, board member of one of the largest insurance companies in Europe or the world. And again, one of our partners. So John, you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, Adam, I can happily do that. So John-Paul is the name. I'm in charge of direct sales and Omnichannel, the organization at ERGO Germany that is taking care of advertisement to growth, so a very end-to-end job. You must imagine there's performance marketing part of it, CRM, and all the related sales channels in one organization. Pretty neat setup. Before that, I joined ERGO in 2016, built up the digital insurance company at ERGO called DMEXCO. And before that, I had a life outside of financial services. I was at Vodafone for a decade in different commercial jobs. The last one being the head of global sales services and CRM in the UK at Vodafone. And it all started in a little retail store 20 years ago in Vodafone, where I actually sold my way into university, so to say. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Before I get to my next question, by a raise of hand, how many of you are currently hiring someone with some GenAI expertise, if you can raise your hand? Not many. How many of you, GenAI is somewhat part of your job right now, if you can raise your hand? More. And how many of you are freaked out about GenAI, if you can raise your hand? This is good. It's a good place to be. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Even one of my guys.
I know. By the way, I saw some Taboola people freaked out.
Dominic.
That is not allowed. But if GenAI was this, if it's a superpower, and if GenAI was the Jedi, and it can be used for good, and it can be used for bad, Darth Vader and all those things, we're concerned. John, we have marketers, creators here in the audience. People are concerned that this is going to affect us, replace us. In your opinion, will AI and GenAI, will that replace marketers of different kind?
I actually don't think so. So my father, he was a big fan of the TV series Mad Men. And he always told people, my son is also working a very creative job because he works in marketing. I never corrected him, but the truth is, marketing has become extremely technical over the last 2 decades. Don't we all agree? The best CMO is likely to be a really great CTO as well. So I think we're about at the verge of a real creativity renaissance because GenAI, it has the potential to become the greatest co-pilot for marketers going forward. Let me tell you why it is. A marketer's job is all about execution. Sales process optimization, media buying, monitoring, lots of stuff. So how can we increase the number of test cycles? We have to have something, some technology probably, that is taking on that part of the job that is not moving the needle. And I think GenAI has the potential of doing that. We've seen first evidences in our business. But on the other hand, there are some downsides as well. Well, when the entering of the marketing growth race is becoming easier, the hurdles for this market become lower. More companies are entering that market, and it's very likely that there is more swamp of interchangeable content and advertising out there in the advertising spaces we care about. So what does that mean? It means that the human needs to make a difference going forward even more than it did before. Specialization and stuff for the marketers of the future and the next generation, and probably even the current one. That's what I think.
Well, let me just say, from our perspective, what we see is that, first of all, I agree. I think your job is safe. Everyone's job is safe. I think there's a lot of drama. But the truth is that history tends to repeat itself. And we've seen this type of new technologies in the car manufacture industry where machines created the cars. We've seen that in the music industry. And even right now, I can tell you where I'm looking at what can people do with their time. And as an example, should you create a title or should you advise the strategy of content creation and storytelling? And I think it's much more empowering to give people a chance to do things that are more impactful and can drive a positive impact on clients and their own efforts versus doing the work that is not necessarily unique. So and I see it at Taboola, I see it all around. So one, I think our job is safe. And two, I think this is actually an opportunity for us to move up the food chain. Some jobs, I think, will be eliminated, but it will be replaced with more jobs that will use things that only we can do, we humans, humans as a superpower. So, we talked a bit high level about GenAI, and I want to kind of bring it down a little bit, especially from your point of view, because you see day-to-day operation of a very large organization. So if you had to kind of pick 2 or 3 ideas, things that can be utilized using GenAI in a real-world scenario, what could you share with us?
So ERGO Germany is operating in a highly regulated industry. Let me say that before I continue. Because as my team started experimenting with GenAI tools, the first conversation we had was, well, what parts of our current job and value chain can we actually safely use those tools in the current stage of development? That was the first conversation we had to have. What we came up with was the creative process, because building up campaigns that can actually drive sales results, that is something where we could start implementing the tools most likely at the first. And what I found extremely striking is how quickly my teams integrated conversations with AI into their daily work. So, for example, they draw at the beginning of a new campaign the first 20 ideas from this tool. They integrated it into their meetings. It's a little bit like Jarvis from the Avengers, this little voice in the helmet of Iron Man. And it became so quickly natural to them. So that's the first thing.
And how did you get them to adopt it? How did you get people introduced to it and to know how to use it? What was the introduction?
It always starts with people nowadays, to be honest, right? There was one person, he even sits in the room here. It's not the guy who is scared, by the way. And
this is a safe space. There's nothing bad will happen.
He brought the first things with him and started introducing it. I even caught up on it and had to have the conversation with the teams to say, look, let's see where it makes sense and is safe for our customers and users. And then it became natural super quick.
Okay.
And that's what was impressive. It reminded me a bit of the great interface revolution of the iPhone. It was just so easy to engage with it that it was fun, and that's why it became second nature very quickly. So a second idea, because we wanted 2, 3, happily doing so, ad fatigue. We all know that consumers nowadays are getting fed up by the same ads very, very quickly. It's a real problem. So one of the tools at Taboola, actually, is giving us the power to produce variants of the same advertisements super, super quick and overcoming the ad fatigue, increasing conversion, and therefore results. Pretty, pretty cool. And I think where that came from is actually much more. And the third thing, you all know one of the hardest brain work for marketers is when they have to find an entirely new angle to market a product. And using the power of GenAI to change perspectives, to basically slip into the perspective of somebody else to help you challenge your ideas, that's extremely powerful as well. And it helped us to sometimes overcome some blockages in our creativity. It was pretty cool so far.
You know, it's interesting. About a third of our business at Taboola is self-service. So these are advertisers that come to us because they heard about us, or you know, a friend of them or someone they know used it. And obviously for them, the ability to generate thumbnails and titles, and soon maybe even landing pages. You know, can you imagine that you go to this machine and you say, I want to sell speaker phones, and the machine will create titles and thumbnails, and even a variety of landing pages that already have the pixel and all those things that will optimize for your campaign. That's quite awesome, especially if you think about helping businesses and even small businesses to be successful, because it's fairly, our industry is complicated. You have to learn about CPM and CPC and CTR and conversion pixels and view-through attribution and click-through attribution and all these things. You know, it's complicated. And if we, all of us, you know, we want to make, at the end of the day, you know, we want to make businesses successful, big and small. It's an opportunity to just help companies be successful faster. Interestingly enough, on the publisher side, which is not, you know, advertisers, we're seeing people use GenAI to generate newsletters. So again, like storytelling. If beforehand they didn't have the team that can create newsletters, now they can create as many as they want automatically. So we're seeing this, again, nothing too dramatic, but enough to kind of make it productive.
And you see here that with that technology, people who never used the marketing to actually generate growth are starting to do so, because it becomes easier.
Right, and we measure that. We measure churn. We're measuring budgets. And the main kind of leading indicator to see, is this GenAI stuff real? And I think it's a little bit real now. And I think over time, it might be a little more real. All right, so you're not only, you know, an expert in, you know, GenAI, and you've been doing this for a long time, and you have a, you know, executive view about the industry. You also work in a fairly complicated industry, which is the insurance industry, and one of the largest one. And in the insurance industry, privacy matters a lot. In Germany, privacy matters a lot. You know, privacy was a leader in GDPR more than any other place around the world. And I think, you know, regulation matters in Germany, which is an opportunity for the rest of the world to kind of follow suit on what, you know, regulation and processes and how we should interact with consumers and other communities. So in that respect, I think Germany is a leader in that process. But in GenAI, one thing that concerns me, and I think concerns people, is if you can create content automatically, and if you can create, you know, visuals automatically, how do we, you know, and you can index Wikipedia, and you can index the New York Times, and how do we take care of those people, the content creators? By the way, in Germany, fun fact, you may know this already, but I think the vast majority of publishers in Germany currently block the crawler of GenAI, which is not necessarily something I think I'm seeing in other countries. So there's obviously a concern here around, you know, take care of us before you take our stuff. So how do we take care of these content creators? What do you think?
So it's about checks and balances in the end. When I go back to the picture of the GenAI Copilot next to the side of marketers, and I think it's a very helpful picture. You don't switch your Copilot on autopilot. We are not doing that. We're an insurance company. We love to play it safe a little bit, because that's kind of our job. So what I mean by that is, regardless of what the Copilot can create and come up with, without being checked by the highly skilled and specialized human that does the double checking and says, is that correct? Is it safe? Is it private? Have we done everything correctly? I don't think that these checks and balances will go away anytime soon, nor do I actually want it to go away. There is a practical reason for that. I think the interplay between the Copilot and highly skilled marketers is actually part of the value proposition and not the entire automation. Don't think so. With regards to content creators specifically, we all know there is a huge conversation going on in many places. What I do think is, in case that content created by content creators, that is copyrighted, is used by a model for training, we have to have a conversation. Is it more like in the music industry, sampling? Or is it kind of an inspiration? Is there something like inspiration when you use technology? These questions have not been answered yet, but they have to be part of the conversation.
Okay, we have only 3 minutes. One, I'm optimistic it will be solved. One, because if publishers and content creators will not be compensated, then they will not give their content to those machines. If those machines don't get good content, then it's garbage in, and then it's garbage out. So I'm optimistic. Also, when Facebook Instant Articles 5 years ago tried to take publishers' content, but not pay publishers enough, eventually it broke. So evil is not a good strategy. So eventually you have to compensate people for the value they create. So I'm optimistic. I'm going to run faster, even though I speak fast in any case. So I want to talk about culture. Right? We're talking about machines. I want to talk about humans and culture. When you currently market in different cultures, maybe even in Germany, in different regions, obviously you have to think about the community you're messaging to. So in the case of, by the way, in Malaysia, as an example, you can show a picture of a pig. Mm-hmm. In Japan, you can't cut the thumbnail of a sumo fighter. These are true facts. So with GenAI, how do we take that into consideration? How do we avoid a world in which we ask a GenAI, create for me 100 pictures of a CMO, and what we get back is 100 pictures of white male? Like, how do we avoid this weirdness that might come to us when there's bias or ignoring cultures and diversity that is so important to us?
So no co-pilot on autopilot. Let's start with that first, because we talked about it. But let me try to envision a little bit how this could actually look like, how it could play out. So there is Jean, a marketing manager who's running a big international campaign, probably an intercultural in Germany, it doesn't matter. She comes into her office, and her co-pilot is actually welcoming her with the latest results of the campaign she's running, probably including some raw materials as recommendations for the next ads she could also run. And probably there is even a cultural sensitivity score that points her in a direction. Afterwards, she has a meeting with Laura, and Laura is a type of marketer that I think we haven't seen much, which is a highly specialized person, probably only doing marketing in the financial industry, probably even focused on certain products, and probably even focused on certain cultural groups. And together with her, these two people, they are going to craft a narrative that is going to win sales and that is going to win the hearts of customers based on the co-pilot's material offered. I think that could be a scenario in the future.
All right. I want to first of all thank the audience. You've been wonderful. I want to thank you, John, for joining us. And
thank you.
My last question on the 28 seconds we have left is, if this year's theme was GenAI, take us into the future. We're all here again because DMEXCO was great, and we're coming back. What is the theme next year? How does the future look like?
It's a really, really good question. So first of all, I hope that the one person who is currently scared, I will try to convince not to be scared and think about the opportunity. That's the first thing. And I do think we have to do more test runs based on the current areas where the technology is safely usable, and convince our people to see the opportunity and not the fear around it.
Opportunity, not a fear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.